Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America. Chris is out again this week. You know, he had job come up last second. So unfortunately, he's not with me today, but join me as usual, not always, but as usual, I do have Jim Cegelski with me. Jim, welcome back here to Chris McDaniel's America.
Glad to be here, Jack.
You know, it's funny. It seems like every day there's something new and insane happening in the world. And it just, you sit back and you do shows like these and you long for the days where what am I going to talk about? That hadn't been the case here lately because again, Jim, last time I had you on, we were talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now we have ICE agents being targeted, and the same thing or similar to Charlie Kirk, the bullets are engraved with similar phrasing to what was on the bullets that the assassin used to shoot at Charlie Kirk with. And it just goes back to the question here, because the left has proven that they don't have respect for the sanctity of life, obviously, because these type of things keep happening. And part of the reason, and this is what I want to kind of dive into a little bit today, part of the reasoning behind that is they've dehumanized so many people. Charlie Kirk was dehumanized because, and we talked about this last time, he was called a fascist, a Nazi, a bigot, any name that they could throw out to him to make him seem like a bad person. They threw that out there constantly, and it had an effect. Now, on rational thinking people, would it have an effect? No, but there are crazies out there in this world. And when you start to dehumanize people the way that they did Charlie, those folks that are not sane are going to see this and see it as a call to action. And they've done the same thing with all these ICE agents for so long. We've dehumanized ICE agents to the point now, Jim, that we have made, or the media and the left, because the media is as guilty here as can be, they have gone out of their way to paint these honest working citizens out as monsters. They're stormtroopers. They're Nazis themselves. They're part of Donald Trump's out of control government. That's what they try to paint them as. And when you do that to people, they seem like they're part of something evil. They're part of something bad. These elements, these people that are easily swayed by this stuff, will grab that and run with it. That's why this rhetoric of the left, this mindset that they have to just label anything they disagree with as evil, then they are helping set the stage here. And I think they know it, and they haven't backed down, despite the fact that they continue to say, we need to dial down the rhetoric. We need to dial back the rhetoric. They only say that when it's targeted at conservatives. They have no intention of dialing down the rhetoric, Jim. I think you know that. I think I know that. Jim, have you seen anything this inflammatory or language like this be utilized in a way that is weaponized? Folks to take arms against government employees and just a guy that wanted to sit down and have debate. Can you remember a time in our history where this was happening like this?
Not like this. I mean, the left has always called, the right, racist and names like that. It's funny because the right turns around and calls the left stupid. Things that aren't like they're a threat to democracy or fascist or Nazis or anything like that. It's toned down a lot, but liberals, on the other hand, they have made this life and death. They really have. Just yesterday, Gavin Newsom was on a talk show and basically calling ICE the Gestapo and had the nerve to say that if something wasn't done, there wouldn't be elections in 2028, which that's absurd. Of course there's going to be elections in 2028. But he has the nerve to say that to scare people so much that they think, the loony left has to take action. They have to kill people. And that's exactly what's happening. I mean, the fact that ICE was attacked the way they were this morning, is directly because of the rhetoric from the left, and it's going to continue. I don't see anything that's going to stop it.
No, I mean, it's insane what we're seeing here. They're saying that the ICE sniper searched videos saying that Kirk shot. So he obviously was motivated by what happened in Utah. He obviously saw this as a possibility or as something that was a good idea. It's crazy because, again, this is not something you would expect to see. And again, it could help the Democrats on twofold, because they also, while they don't like what we have to say, they also hate guns, and they are going to try to take this as an opportunity to try to say that we need to take guns. No, the guns aren't the problem here. It's this radicalization. It's this zealous mindset that the left has, that they are helping formulate inside the minds of these people that are willing to go down this path. And they know what they're doing. That's the worst part about it. They know full well that by going down these rabbit holes and making these labels and these names and constantly throwing out, ICE has been around before Donald Trump. They might not have been doing as good of a job, not because the agents weren't good at their job, but because other administrations weren't allowing them to do their job.
They've never had a task like now. Joe Biden's given them so many people that need to be deported from this country. That, I mean, they're more visible than they ever were before, and because that's the Democrats' fault. One tactic that the left is starting to use, and NBC News put this out a couple of days ago, Jack, I don't know if you saw it, but it was a report that said the Charlie Kirk shooter wasn't linked to any leftist groups. Well, the leftist group at this point, the radical leftist group, is the entire Democrat Party. It's the media. They're the one putting out the fact that these people are fascists, Nazis, threats to democracy. That's the entire Democrat Party at this point, is a radical left group. They're the one indoctrinating these people. It's going to be really hard to track down. I mean, I know Trump made Antifa a terrorist organization this week, which he definitely should have done that. Yeah. It's going to be hard to come up with the actual group of that, but the entire Democrat Party at this point is Antifa. I mean, there's very few common sense liberals at this point. Fetterman, maybe the governor of Pennsylvania.
Who would have ever thought Fetterman was going to be the common sense guy when he first got but he is.
Can you name more than 2 or 3 common sense Democrats at this point? And
no.
And what makes you wonder about these people is, why are they still Democrats?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're believing at this point, I mean, a YouGov poll just came out just a few days ago. 50% of liberals think the president of the United States should be assassinated. That is sickening. It is really sad. 48% think Elon Musk should be killed.
Yeah.
And just as a comparison, 23 or 25% of people that identify as very liberal think that political violence is okay. 3% of people who are very conservative think political violence is okay. That's the difference right now between the right and the left.
Yeah.
All of the violence is coming from the left. They want you to think it's violence on both sides. It's not true.
Yeah. And when you have people up there that are making excuses for them, and it's happening because you've got MSNBC security and intelligence analyst Christopher O'Leary. He discussed the ICE shooting, and when he was talking about it, he said that yes, while people should tone down their rhetoric, he said you have to start looking at what policies you've implemented and what tactics you're using, because if you tone down the rhetoric, but you leave these other pieces in place, nothing's going to change. So he's again trying to blame the policies for what's sparking this. He says that that's worse than the rhetoric. Look, you can disagree with a policy. For the previous 4 years, there was multiple policies we disagreed with during the Biden administration, but it didn't spark us to go start shooting up the place.
Honestly, Jack, you can take it a step further. This isn't policy. This is actually law.
Yeah.
All ICE is doing is enforcing the law. If the left wants to change the law, they need to do that through Congress. ICE is out there just like every other law enforcement agency enforcing the law. That's what their job is. That's what they're supposed to do. But these people, they want to unmask these ICE agents so they can be doxxed and their family can be targeted. And that's another form of terrorism from the left.
Yeah. And he didn't stop there because he continued. He said, so terrorism is theater. It's intended to influence an audience beyond its immediate victims. It's putting message out. And terrorism falls into really three categories. It's either religiously motivated, ideology motivated, or in this case, politically motivated. And the politically motivated ones, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because conditions have been set that people start acting out against. So again, his own words, he's trying to okay this. He's trying to place the blame on the Trump administration for enforcing our border laws, for trying to maintain the law and order that's been ignored for far too long. And to me, that's sickening because you see exactly what he's doing here. He's excusing the terrorism by trying. Terrorism's terrorism. And if you want to say, and to sit here and say that politically motivated and ideology motivated are separated, that's stupid. They're the same thing. Politically motivated comes from an ideology. Right. So it's still ideology motivated. The problem here, and this is why he wants to try to dance around it, is, again, he works for MSNBC. MSNBC skews to which direction?
Listen, they skew to me. They skew to terrorist left, not just left. They are supporters of terrorism. They've incited terrorism. You had people on there like Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, a whole bunch of them that basically spewed hatred and racism and they were the main ones that were accusing Trump of being Hitler and his supporters of being Nazis.
You know, he went further because he wasn't ready to stop there. He talked about distrust in institutions that's been building for quite some time, attacks on institutions, the wealth gap, oppression, oppressive policies. At least this is what people perceive. And then the militarization of ICE and other federal law enforcement, the wearing of masks, the aggressive tactics. So again, he continues to paint this picture that because ICE is aggressively trying to enforce the laws that we all can admit have not been enforced in quite some time, that's the problem here, that, well, maybe they shouldn't wear masks. You know, Gavin Newsom and those brain trusts there in California, they recently passed a bill saying that ICE agents can't wear masks, law enforcement officials can't wear masks. I don't see how that helps anything. And I think some cases, especially when we see targeted attacks like this, maybe it's a good thing for them to have that mask on. Maybe you're seeing just why we thought that it was a good idea for them to be able to wear those masks in the first place.
Don't you think it's a little ironic that that's the same state that enforced toddlers wearing masks during COVID, but now they don't want ICE agents to wear masks when they're just trying to protect their families? It's sick. There's a reason that most of Gavin Newsom's money comes from George Soros, is because he's an anti-American douchebag.
It's 100% accurate. You know, I mean, when you sit back and you watch this stuff and you hear this guy continue to try to place blame elsewhere outside of the radical leftist ideology. And that's what it is. Again, he wants to say politically motivated and try to separate the two. There's no separation. Politics is an ideology, is it not? What am I missing here where he tries to make that like that's two separate distinctions? It shouldn't be. And in this case, it is a sickening ideology that does not value human life. And it's been brought to this place because we've gotten to the point where the mainstream media, he is included in this because he is now part of the problem. He's one of the ones up there trying to paint this picture. Basically what he's saying, Jim, is if we want the terrorism to stop, we need to give the terrorists what they want.
Yes.
I mean, that's basically what he's saying, that if you want to stop terrorism, if you want to stop these knuckleheads from shooting at conservatives, from shooting at ICE agents, then we just need to not show up on a college campus and try to have debate. We should just make sure that ICE doesn't do its job, because again, that's the problem. ICE is doing its job. That's the problem. It's not the problem of the shooter. It's not the problem of the left pushing this propaganda, and that's what it is, propaganda, that those in ICE are evil. Look, I don't trust our government. I never have. I never will. I don't care who's running it. I think less government is the best option, period. Always have, always will, because again, I have a healthy distrust for our government. I can understand distrusting your government, but I'm not going to go out there and just start firing at innocent people that are just doing their job. I'm just not going to do that, especially when they're corralling folks that are not U.S. citizens. Let's not forget, ICE's job is to catch illegal immigrants, and that's what they've been doing. And the fact that the media wants to try to hype this up into something worse is just really sickening. And the fact that they can't even admit for just a moment that it's their rhetoric causing the problem.
Yeah. If you call an agency the Gestapo, you're connecting them again. They love Nazi Germany rhetoric for some reason. I mean, and so if you're dehumanizing somebody to the point of calling them a Nazi, the Gestapo, or Hitler, you're basically calling on violence against those people. And as far as I'm concerned, Trump should designate the Democrat Party and the media as a terrorist organization, because they're doing exactly what ISIS, Hamas, Antifa, and all these terrorist organizations do.
Absolutely. And it's just, could you imagine if he did try to do that to the media?
Awesome. It would be awesome, and he should do it.
The freedom of the press, folks, I'm not sure he could get up, but I get where you're coming from, because, again, there's no reason if you're mainstream. Look, if AOC wants to get up there and say something stupid, she's going to, because, she's stupid. But the mainstream media shouldn't be putting out nonsense like this guy was. Well,
and this is a whole kind of different topic, but I had this conversation with somebody today. The mainstream media has been putting out this lopsided dialogue for how many years now? At least since Trump's been in office, but probably before that. Why? They're government licensed operations that are supposed to be fair and balanced. Mm-hmm. And it's always left-wing rhetoric coming out of their late-night talk shows, The View, their news, all their news programs, the weekend news programs. Everything is one-sided and to the left.
Even the sports programming.
Yeah, even yes, absolutely. Even the sports program. I think absolutely the FCC should look at pulling some of their licenses.
I have no problem with you trying to force the fair and balanced, especially under the nature of what they're supposed to do. If you go back, and I saw a documentary, it was probably 3 or 4 months back, and it gave me an idea of doing a show on this, but I want to do one down the road with our friend and historian Ron Walters on it. And it's basically the media used to report on things a completely different way. And it showed examples of it. And one case was there was a Senate bill that they were showing on this video. And the way that the journalist on the television screen covered it said, this bill was for this. It passed with a vote of however many to however many against. And that was it. There was no discussion about whether that person supported the bill, was against the bill. No point was there any interjection of an opinion in that report. It was just merely this bill passed. And here's the title of the bill and what it's supposed to do. Move on. That was the intent. Now, again, I understand they're opinion people, and I understand that they're folks. You and I both write opinion columns from time to, you write one every week. I write one every now and then, but I also do a opinion-based show, and I'm on this opinion-based show. So I understand opinion-based things are completely different. What we're talking about when we say that you need to be fair and balanced is mainstream reporting. And they say that sometime in the 1960s, imagine that, that's when there were folks that were in journalism that decided, maybe we should be doing a little more reporting about what this is and why it's good or bad. And because that's not what journalism's supposed to be. Now, look, there's investigative journalism. That doesn't mean you can't investigate and find out that a piece of legislation is bad. I'm not saying that either. But when you're just reporting on the topic, your opinion on the topic should not be put in there. I was told that when I was taking journalism classes in college, that we should not be interjecting our opinions into it. And then they'd show us different books to read that talked about how propaganda worked its way into journalism. I said at the time, so all this is doing is giving people ideas of how they can do that anyway. And folks do that constantly.
But there's actually a difference, Jack. Fox News isn't federally licensed. They're on a cable channel. Mm-hmm. The Laurel Leader Call that you and I both work for, we're not federally licensed. Yeah. ABC, NBC, and CBS are federally licensed. Even if it's an opinion, they should always have the opposite opinion to bounce that out. And that's what they're missing. Like, obviously their reporting is lopsided and it's always leaning to the left. I get that. But if you're going to have a show on like Jimmy Kimmel or any of the late night shows, Colbert, Fallon, any of them, a show like The View, where's the opposite at? Where is the bounce? I don't see it. I don't see it on any of the programming at all. They don't even try anymore. And that's where it becomes unfair. Those are federally licensed. They're supposed to be fair and bounced. It's that Fox News doesn't have to play by the same rules. Anybody on cable, anybody on the internet, YouTube, you don't have to play by the same rules, but their federal licenses should be pulled unless they're presenting the other side to the arguments, and they're not even trying.
Yeah. And that's a good point where, again, I want to see you report it. And if you want to have a dialogue about it, have both sides talk about it. But when your mainstream anchors are sprinkling in their opinion, and by the time you do get to your token conservative that you have up there, that most of the time is not even a true strong conservative, it's just somebody that they can say he's to the right of us, so that's good. By the time he gets up there, it's already so watered down because, again, it went through the anchor, then it goes to the next person or the other anchor that's sitting at the desk with them. Then it goes to their opinion person. And then they probably have another so-called expert, which is also just an opinion person. Then they might go to the token conservative. And by that time, they've already set in what they want to say. And when you've got folks up there that are constantly just berating and saying the most heinous things about conservatives, about ICE agents, about whoever, it will leave a mark, especially with some of these more deranged individuals, because there are people in this world. We've seen it. There are bad people on both sides of the equation. You and I can both agree on that. And if you give them enough ammunition to make them think that they are just in what they are doing, they will believe that and they will follow down that path. We saw it with what happened to Charlie Kirk. We're now seeing it with what happened to ICE agents, and this won't be the end of it. I can assure you of that. It's not going to be the end of it.
It's just getting started, actually.
And I can tell you this too. This idiot that wants to say that if we just need to give the terrorists what they want and that way they'll stop. No, they won't, because they'll know full well that if they act out, you'll give them what they want. So they'll act out even further on something else that they want. You have to stand up to it. I mean, it's frustrating because, again, this shouldn't be happening in our country. We are witnessing the country unravel. I think Chris said it last week when I did the interview with him. We're seeing some unraveling of this country. Is it too late to save? No, I don't think it's too late to save. But if there aren't actions taken, and do I have all the answers for what the actions are? No, because I really don't want to see too big of a government action because, as we said before, I don't trust government. But I also think that the simple solution would be if the left would agree to dial down that rhetoric, but they won't, because, again, it's working for them. I mean, you had folks like AOC and Benny Thompson that are still calling Charlie Kirk deplorable and a terrible person and a bigot and refusing to vote for a resolution to honor him. They merely want to put that stuff out there because, again, they don't know anything else. Again, AOC, she's an idiot. We know that. Benny Thompson is just a disgusting person, and I'm ashamed to say
he's also an idiot.
You know, he's a race baiter. He always has been. That's all he knows is race.
Jack, I think I do have the solution. I don't know if you want to hear it, but our side is we want to be perceived as the good guys. We are. You know, we're the ones holding the candlelight vigils. We're the ones, behaving ourselves, even though they're stomping on Charlie Kirk memorials and celebrating his death. We're behaving ourselves. And I'm not saying we shouldn't behave ourselves, but if we are, I think we are such a silent, big, huge majority at this point. We've got to stop being silent. You and I aren't silent. We come out and talk about it. We write about it and all that. But there's so many people that agree with us, but they are not going to get on Facebook and make waves. They're not going to say anything. And it's time we have to express our power as the massive majority that I believe we are. And let's hope we are, because if it's even close, then we are in deep trouble, because evil has overtaken this country to the point that we're not going to get it back if we are not the big majority. I think we keep becoming even bigger, because I think even some liberals who had a little bit of common sense are seeing what their party has descended into, and they don't want any part of that. So we're getting bigger and bigger. We're just not loud. We're not standing up for ourselves. We're not speaking out. I had this conversation. I used to work at Random House, which is a book company that's out of New York City. Of course, it's a very liberal organization. And so I have old colleagues there, and I'm friends with them, and they're nice people, but they are misguided. Yeah. They believe that Trump is evil. They believe, and I had one of them post something that I responded to about Jimmy Kimmel, and another colleague got on there and said, how did we lose a good guy like Jim Sigelski? And I'm thinking, what makes you think you're the good guys? And that's really, they're on the side of the bad guys. They're on the guys of the assassinations and the political violence side. We need to speak up. If everybody did it, if everybody, there's this big thing. We are Charlie Kirk. We all need to actually be Charlie Kirk. Yeah. We actually need to speak up and say something, and don't let them take over this country. Well
said, Jim. And with that, I think we'll take a quick break here on Chris McDaniel's America. We're going to let some sponsors and pay some bills, so we'll be right back.
Resort.
All right, everyone, welcome back here to Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network. I'm joined alongside Jim Sigelski. Chris, again, if you're just tuning in, he is out today. Unfortunately, had to work again, but we hope to have Chris back next week. But Jim and I are having a discussion about this whole insane rhetoric the left throws out. And one of the folks that I think illustrated this in probably the worst possible fashion is a guy that's been making all headlines lately, and that's Jimmy Kimmel. You've referenced him a couple of times. Jimmy Kimmel, of course, last week, he was suspended from his show. Now, a lot of people took that and ran with it, said he was canceled. I always maintain suspended because I noticed the language. The language was clear. If he was canceled, they would have said canceled. Now, a lot of people believed, even those of us who recognized it was suspended, believed that it might lead to a cancelization, especially after distributors started saying that they were not going to put his content out. Well, ABC, of course, caved, as some knew they would, and Jimmy Kimmel made his triumphant return on Tuesday night. I didn't watch it live, but I found it online because I was, like many people, curious how he was going to conduct himself after being pulled off of the airwaves for just a few days. And Jimmy, of course, he gets up there and he tries to sum up his little crocodile tears in certain moments. There were moments of his monologue that I'm like, okay, maybe he's sincere there. But the biggest thing he didn't do was he never apologized. And he tried to spin around that he didn't say what he said. He tried to walk around actually issuing the apology. And of course, went right back into his, Trump's the worst person in the world dialogue that his whole stick, which means his ratings, because I think he had good ratings his first night back, which was predictable because there were a lot of people that don't care about Jimmy Kimmel that tuned in out of a curiosity point. Those ratings won't be maintained. I can promise you that. Jim, what did you make of it?
Well, I actually can echo what you just said. I thought it was insincere. He's very good at crying on camera. But again, all he really had to do, Jack, was come out and say, I lied about this shooter being MAGA.
Yeah.
Because he did.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about it. Yeah. That would have probably made Nexstar and the other one, Sinclair, go, okay, he's apologized. But he didn't apologize. So as far as I know, those affiliates have not picked him back up. And I hope they don't.
They have not.
Because he's not sincere. He's always going to be this liberal propagandist and not a comedian, I just saw a clip from Johnny Carson saying that, late night talk show comedians have no business talking about politics or serious subjects because you alienate half your audience. Well, he doesn't seem to care. I don't know why ABC doesn't care. He's been losing money just like Colbert. His ratings tanked years ago. And you're right, he got 6 million viewers for this episode, but they're going to fade away. Probably half of them were conservatives to see if he would actually apologize.
Yeah.
So he's being subsidized by Disney to stay on the air as a propagandist because Disney is a liberal propaganda company themselves. They're the people that seem to have forgotten that they're supposed to be entertaining children.
Yeah, and the fact that the left has tried to make him and Stephen Colbert into martyrs, like they're these champions of free speech. Guys, let's be real honest about something. They're employees. They are not guaranteed to have that show. That show is not their divine right. Having a late night talk show. Look, if Jim decided tomorrow that he didn't want me and Chris to do this show anymore, that doesn't mean Jim denied us our freedom of speech. That just means Jim decided he wanted to move on from this particular show. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not denying you your freedom of speech. But the left, that doesn't help their narrative. So that's why Stephen Colbert is a martyr, because he's being canceled in May. Meanwhile, CBS didn't pull him off the air immediately. So he's got a whole year to air grievances and say whatever he wants. So again, now you tell me again, how are they denying his freedom of speech the way they say? In the Jimmy Kimmel incident, he could have been pulled off the air and probably should have stayed off the air based on his ratings. His ratings are bad. I mean, they're not close to being good. They were good the other night because of curiosity, but they're not good ratings. He's not going to maintain that because most of the people that tuned in on Tuesday, they saw what I saw, and they saw a guy that continued to push the same tired narrative. Trump bad, me so much smarter. That's pretty much all these late night shows do now. And that's why they become unwatchable. I remember Johnny Carson. I remember Jay Leno who followed a similar path. had politicians on, but they had Republicans and Democrats, and they made fun of both of them. That's part of why they were successful. They didn't pick a side. They made fun of all sides.
And how dare these people say they're defenders of freedom of speech after what we went through during COVID, after every conservative podcaster was basically shut down on YouTube and every platform. Google just admitted that the Biden administration shut down conservative viewpoints. So and Jimmy Kimmel himself celebrated the canceling of Roseanne. So how dare they all of a sudden they're the defenders of free speech? That is ridiculous. They hate free speech. They only like free speech that they agree with. So that is ridiculous on its own face value right there. And actually it's quite offensive that all of a sudden, here's the other thing. They claimed Donald Trump was the one that got Jimmy Kimmel thrown off the air. Well, apparently that wasn't true, because the next thing you know, Jimmy Kimmel's back on the air. Where's the credit going to Donald Trump for getting Jimmy Kimmel back on the air? Because they sure blamed him for kicking him off the air.
Yeah, they definitely were quick to say that it was Trump who got him off the air, and it wasn't. Now, maybe the FCC chief shouldn't have spoken up the way that he did and give them an opportunity, but he said what he said. That had nothing to do with the decision. But of course, the left, they tell us not to run down conspiracy theories, but they'll go run down one and then print it like it's conspiracy fact without any evidence. Oh, you have this statement, then he's pulled. We're going to connect the dots. They may not have had any true connection to one another other than just the timing of it. But that's the thing that they continue to push, because again, it helps their narrative. They want to create these champions out of Jimmy Kimmel. They want to create these champions out of Stephen Colbert. And that's why it's so important for them to try to pretend that, yes, they're being targeted by this government, the administration targeting them. Look, there's no denying that Trump doesn't like Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, because all they do is take pot shots at him time and time again. Some of them can be funny, but I also want to hear you take pot shots at AOC,
right?
Because she is a mountain of humor.
Biden, I mean, my goodness, where was the Biden skits?
Yeah,
he was basically a walking skit, and there was never a Saturday Night Live skit about him. There was never anything on these late night shows. And here's where I'm going to disagree with a little bit with you and a lot of Republicans, because a lot of Republicans like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and a bunch of others jumped on the bandwagon that Jimmy Kimmel should be reinstated for freedom of speech purposes. I go back to the FCC pulling the licenses of these companies that aren't being fair and balanced. These ABC, CBS, and NBC specifically. I'm not talking about MSNBC or CNN. They're on the same rules as Fox. But those three channels are federally licensed, and they're supposed to give both sides of the argument, and they're not. Jimmy Kimmel happens to be on ABC. So I'm actually with the FCC chairman on this one. He's totally one-sided, Jimmy Kimmel is. And it's not just Jimmy Kimmel. If they had another show on there that offset Jimmy Kimmel, I'd be okay with it. Jimmy Kimmel could go on there and do whatever he wanted, but they don't have another show giving an opposite viewpoint.
No.
So it is wrong. And I do think the licenses should be pulled from these three major networks because of that. If they gave the other side, fine, but they don't do it. You know, Trump actually sued one of the networks, I think CBS.
I think it was CBS.
And then he got a commercial during the Super Bowl or something like that. And that's the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to give, those three networks are supposed to give equal airtime. It's not even close. Jimmy Kimmel had one Republican on the entire last year, and he had like hundreds of liberal Democrats on. That's not trying to be fair. Look, and there's nothing that offsets it on ABC.
Years ago, in the old terrestrial radio days of the Right Side Radio Show, one of the folks I love to criticize, because a lot of the stuff he said I completely disagree with, was Bill Maher. But I have so much more respect for Bill Maher today because Bill Maher will have Republicans on his show. He will sit across. He did an entire podcast with Charlie Kirk just a couple of weeks before he was assassinated. The other thing too, and I saw this clip from Bill Maher the other day because somebody was asking, why do you have all these Republicans on? Why aren't you having Kamala Harris on? Why aren't you having Barack Obama on? Why aren't you having, and he said, because they don't show up. They've been asked. They don't come. So they're the ones I vote for. And yet they still don't come on the Republicans show up. They will sit across from me and have a dialogue.
And you know why that is, right? Because Republicans can defend their positions. It's common sense at this point. Trump's policies are common sense. That's why Charlie Kirk didn't really have a problem going on a college campus and debating these people, because he made them all look so stupid because their ideas are so dumb. So, of course, Republicans will go on Bill Maher. They can debate without a problem. And Bill Maher is a very smart guy. I agree with you. So if anybody can actually try to make a little sense out of a liberal position, it is Bill Maher. But the reason a Barack Obama, or especially somebody like a Kamala Harris, isn't going to go on there is they can't defend those positions, and they come off looking stupid, just like she did when she went on The View just yesterday.
I think Obama finally did Bill Maher, but it was years later after he originally. But of course, Joe Biden never did, because Joe Biden probably doesn't even remember who Bill Maher is.
Right, probably doesn't know.
Kamala Harris wouldn't, because he'd eat her for lunch. I mean, because that's the thing about him. Despite the fact that he doesn't agree with us, he calls out the absurdity on the left. He's not afraid to point out, this is insane. This is why you're losing people. And I respect that about him. Don't agree with him on much, but I do respect the fact that he is willing, like Charlie Kirk, to sit down and have a conversation, have a dialogue. That's not something that most liberals want to do nowadays. They scream tolerance. Oh, we need to be, no, what they mean every time they scream tolerance, Jim, is you need to be tolerant of my opinion and shut up if you disagree.
That's exactly right.
I mean, and that's so frustrating, because I love debate. You know, I will sit across from you and we can, at the end of the conversation, agree to disagree. Jim and I agree on most things, not everything. And the things we disagree on, we can still have a fun conversation about. We don't leave angry at each other. I don't get mad when Jim says, I disagree with you on that point. It never offends me, because I know he's going to come back with a strong rationale for why he disagrees with it. It may sway me. It may not. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's a simple disagreement. And that's good. That's what this country was built upon. We need to be able to have open dialogue. And the left doesn't want to have that. They refuse to have that. And when they put simpletons like Jimmy Kimmel on these shows, and let's be honest, Jimmy Kimmel's not a bright guy. He has a staff of people in front of him that are writing that material that he has in front of him. That's not all stuff that's coming up off the top of Jimmy Kimmel's head. We know Jimmy Kimmel's creativity because we saw it when he was hosting a show called The Man Show, when the highlights were women bouncing on trampolines, when the highlights were him showing up in blackface to impersonate Karl Malone. You know, this is the guy that the left wants to make their moral majority, their moral authority now. That is the guy that they want to pin everything on. The guy that did all of that. If you or I had done that, our careers would be over. There would be no comeback from that. But Jimmy Kimmel, it's like, oh, well, he's one of us now, so we just can kind of brush that to the side. We don't really have to worry about it. It's one of those things where I think that's part of the infuriation, is because, again, if you think that that's so offensive that you need to run folks, then why does he get a pass?
Right.
You know, Roseanne Barr, she was fired by ABC for putting out some stupid tweets. And yet Jimmy Kimmel can say what he says on a live I recorded live in front of a live studio, but went over the airwaves as part of the show, not just on Twitter. And he only gets suspended for a couple of days.
The same company, I think Disney, fired a Star Wars actress,
Gina Carano, and she sued.
And she won, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they fired her, I think, just for being conservative.
She got fired because she pretty much for being conservative. She made a comparison to conservatives and Jews in the Holocaust, which might have been a portent, but it's one that I've seen liberals, including one of our co-stars on that same show, utilize that same analogy. He still has a job, but because she was going the conservative route, she had to be fired. She won via a settlement. The case settled. If you know anything about Hollywood and settlements, a settlement means she won.
Oh, yeah.
And she had Elon Musk backing her lawsuit. So she wouldn't have taken the settlement unless it was pretty good for her. So who knows for sure, but both sides claim victory at the end of the day. I guarantee you Gina Carano's side won, just because, again, the reality was she was the one with the deep pockets of Elon Musk. She wasn't just a normal person suing, because she could have rode that thing out to the bitter end because of who was financing her suit. The fact that she got a settlement that she would agree to tells you which side won that fight.
Yeah, and let's face it, she was only fired because she was a conservative. Roseanne Barr only fired because she was a conservative. And I'm not even sure Roseanne Barr was a real conservative, but she spouted something that wasn't liberal lefty. And, liberals, lefties can say just about anything and get away with it. And Jimmy Kimmel just proved that.
Yeah.
Because coming out and lying about something as obvious as the MAGA was the shooter of Charlie Kirk, and then being back on the air, 3 days later or 4 days later, and getting a free pass, only a liberal could get away with that.
Well, I mean, again, and I hate to keep going back and picking on this Christopher O'Leary at MSNBC. He tries to claim now, and I don't know if you saw this as well, that there wasn't a real clear, definable ideology or motive in the Kirk assassination. Did you not see what was engraved on the bullets? Have you not seen some of the things they've found out about the assassin? I think there was a pretty clear motive and ideology here, but again, that's because he's wanting to go away from, he wants to make a difference between political and ideology. I don't see the difference. And this is another guy that is proven himself to be a clown, but of course he's on MSNBC. Nobody's going to watch it anyway. So I guess he continued to get away with saying really stupid things there. Moving on, because I want to get to this before we wrap up. And I think we've got about 10 minutes left, Jim. This whole press conference the other day where Donald Trump got up there and they said, well, before the press conference, they announced they were going to put out a link to autism, something that could potentially cause autism. Well, the press conference let us know that that link is taking Tylenol during pregnancy. Of course, the left was quick to criticize. I watched, some of it, and that wasn't Trump's best delivery. I'll give him that. But at the same time, this was based on a study done by Johns Hopkins University. This was not something that Trump and RFK Jr. just came up with off the top of their head. This is a study that was published by respected entity, and yet the left wants to criticize it. To the point, Jim, as you pointed out before the show, that there are women out there, pregnant women, that are taking Tylenol just because they want to protest the fact. Here's the thing. I don't know for sure if Tylenol causes autism in kids. You don't know for sure. We know there's a study out there that makes a link. I don't think I'd risk having an idiotic protest with my unborn child over it, like some of these insane radicals on the left are doing, Jim.
Yeah, and let's face it, something's causing autism. Rates have skyrocketed. So there is something out there that's causing it. I agree with you. I don't know that it's Tylenol, but it looks like the best prediction is it might be Tylenol at this point. So anybody that would, because they hate Trump so much, put the life of their unborn child at risk by chugging Tylenol to prove a point, those people maybe should be taken out of the gene pool.
They definitely shouldn't be having children in the first place because their child is just a prop, apparently.
Yes.
And that's part of the problem here. And the fact that the left has tried to make this such an absurd claim and ignore where it came from. And I want to say that the study was like 6 years old. This isn't like a new study, if I'm remembering, but it got buried because Tylenol is a big company, I'm sure.
It's a pharmaceutical company, yeah. And you just look who all these politicians get their donations from, and a lot of it's from pharmaceutical companies. So I do think there's a very good chance that Tylenol should be taken in very, very limited moderation when you are pregnant, and that's would be my advice, and I think that's all Trump was trying to say. And I agree with you. I watched that press conference. It wasn't one of his better ones. But, you know, I don't understand the hatred for someone who's trying to do something about autism. Yeah. And autism right now has become a major problem in the world.
Yeah. And what's the harm in cutting back Tylenol in pregnant women? What's the harm in just saying, hey, look, maybe this is not what you should take. There are other options. Maybe you should try this instead of that. It just almost like they don't want him to. And again, this isn't a study that Trump himself personally, this is something they uncovered and brought to the front because it wasn't brought to the front when it should have been.
Yeah. And in RFK and Trump's defense here, mm-hmm. Tylenol, acetaminophen, what's the technical term, is really bad for the liver. Mm-hmm. And a fetus's liver is not developed yet.
Yep.
So I think that's the basis for the study to begin with, and why you would risk that if you don't have to. Listen, I understand being pregnant, you probably need some pain medication occasionally, but all I think they were saying is don't take it unless you really, really need it or a doctor's really telling you to take it.
Yeah. You know, and of course, you know, you've got Michigan Democrat Representative Haley Stevens, who is already calling for Kennedy to be removed from HHS. So, I mean, of course, the predictable, we need to have him impeached, you know, because the Democrats think that's the answer to everything. They love filing articles of impeachment time and time. Quite frankly, I was skeptical of putting RFK Jr. in the position, mainly because of his longtime Democrat bona fides. But I always said this is the position I'd put him in because I think he legitimately cares here.
Right.
And I think that you're seeing that in the fact that he's willing to put out reports that have been buried in the past. I don't think he's creating a health chaos the way that the Democrats want to try. But again, they have to be extreme in everything they say. It goes back to the original topic we were talking about. They have to throw out every extreme they can to try to discredit anything. And in this case, there is no harm in just saying maybe we dial back the Tylenol while we're pregnant.
Jack, you and I both know if this was a Democrat president and RFK was the HHS secretary and said exactly the same thing, there wouldn't be this reaction.
Yeah.
They would agree to him. They'd probably say, oh, wow, RFK's a hero. We need to stop taking Tylenol.
Absolutely.
It's only because he is the HHS secretary under Donald Trump.
That's 100% accurate. I mean, because you've seen it time and time again. You have a person that was championed by the left. They come out and like Donald Trump. Elon Musk, perfect example. Liberals loved Elon Musk. They loved Tulsi Gabbard. They loved RFK Jr. The second they got on board with Trump, not so much. On the flip side of it, you look at folks that the media wasn't too kind for when they were either president or ran for president. Mitt Romney, the left crucified when he ran against Barack Obama. Now he's one of their go-to for a quote to be anti-Trump. George W. Bush, they hated George W. Bush when he was in the White House, but because he's not necessarily as pro-Trump, now George W. Bush is somebody they can look to.
Liz Cheney's one of their heroes now.
Yep.
She was hated. The Cheneys were one of the most hated families in America by the left. Now Liz Cheney is one of their heroes because she doesn't like Donald Trump.
You know, before we wrap up, we've got about 4 minutes. The one thing that was weird to me that happened this week too, that I didn't want to spend too much time on, but I think we have to discuss and talk about is Trump at the UN, the things that happened there, the escalator breaking down the moment he and Melania step onto it. He goes up there to speak. The teleprompter goes down. Jim, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Chris proudly says on this show that we don't do conspiracies on this show, that we want to be. If we do a conspiracy, it's going to be conspiracy fact. We have the, but I'm also one of those people that also, when I see certain things and see it a certain way, I understand that my eyes aren't lying to me. When you have that many things happen all at once, there's no way that that's a coincidence, right? That has to be a connection.
I don't think this is conspiracy, because I'm pretty sure there's a report out where there was some employees that were actually predicting, the escalator was going to go out when Trump was going to go up it. So I think this was actually foreplanned. It was out there publicly that this was going to happen, and they made it happen. And I don't think there's any doubt that this was, sabotage.
Yeah, I think, and look, I think the UN is a terrible organization. They have stolen our money for years. I think the United States should just say, get out of our country. We're not funding you anymore. Because again, if you're going to treat our president of the United States that way, when he shows up in a building that's right there in the United States in the first place, you're going to turn off the escalator. You're going to make sure that his teleprompter stops working.
But they did it to the wrong president.
Yeah.
That would have worked against Biden. Biden wouldn't be able to get up the stairs. Trump had no problem getting up the stairs. The teleprompter goes out on Biden. He's going to stand there dumb-faced, like not knowing what to say. Trump speaks off the cuff almost every speech. So they pulled it on the wrong president. It just showed how stupid they were.
Biden would have been hilarious if somebody had pulled the Ron Burgundy on him and just changed it. Because, something tells me Joe Biden was just like Ron Burgundy. If you put it on that teleprompter, Joe Biden was going to read it.
They could have pulled this stunt on Joe Biden, and it actually would have worked. And probably would have gotten some major results. Doing it on Donald Trump, it was meaningless. Actually, just showed the guy's in pretty darn good shape, and so is Melania. And he has no problem speaking off the cuff. Never has, never will.
It was frustrating, though, as an American, knowing how much money we pay.
Yeah, because we basically fund that operation. But I think Donald Trump basically said it right during his speeches. What is the reason for the UN? What do? They do nothing. They serve no purpose at all at this point. And as far as I'm concerned, they should do away with it.
Amen. Hey, you look, we may disagree on something. That's something we 100% agree on, my friend. Well, look, I think we have come to the end of this particular episode. We thank y'all so much. Jim, thank you for coming in again.
Thank you, Jack.
Chris, we miss you. We look forward to hopefully having you back next week. If not, Jim will be glad to sit in again, of course. We understand your busy schedule, but we do enjoy it when you're here with us. So this has been Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home for the anti-establishment movement.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. MyPillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new MyPillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.